All right, welcome to another deep dive. We are diving into the Riyadh restaurant scene. I'm really excited about this one. The research is really fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
It is.
It's super exciting.
So Riyadh seems to be just this incredible mix of um, that classic Middle Eastern dining and then all these like super modern, trendy places that are popping up all over the place.
Yeah, it's a really exciting time for sure.
Okay, so the listener wants to open a restaurant in Riyadh, and we've gone through like a stack of stuff and tried to pull out the best pieces. So
one of the first things that I think is a great resource to look at is a blog post by Menuville. They're a company that specializes in online menus, but they have this fantastic blog that goes into some of the details of location scouting, and that's really what we're going to be focusing on today. So
yeah, okay, so before we even get to like the nitty-gritty of locations and all that, why is Riyadh such a hotbed for restaurants? What's driving all this growth?
Well, there's a few factors at play. One is definitely the economy.
Yeah.
The economy is booming, leading to higher disposable income. More people have money to spend on leisure and dining out.
Yeah.
And then there's this whole cultural shift happening with Vision 2030.
Okay.
Essentially, the government is pushing to modernize the country, which includes making it more of a tourism and leisure destination.
Mm-hmm.
So that means an explosion in demand for dining experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So you have people looking for traditional Saudi food, but then also all sorts of international options too.
Okay, so Riyadh, I mean, it sounds like the place to be if you're a food entrepreneur.
For sure.
Like, this is it right now. But how do you even choose where to begin in a city that size?
Well, that's where understanding the current trends is really key. And one of the things that's been a big trend, and I think Menuville called it this, premium casual.
Okay.
So you get a really high quality dining experience, but it's not the kind of stuffy, formal atmosphere that maybe some people associate with fine dining.
Right, okay.
So that's a big trend. People are also becoming increasingly health conscious.
Okay.
So organic ingredients, lighter options, those are resonating.
Yeah.
And let's not forget about the convenience factor too.
Sure.
Delivery and takeout are booming, especially with the summer heat.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
And the busy lifestyles.
Yeah. So do you think Riyadh is kind of like, like in London, I remember like 15 years ago, it was all about fine dining.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like all these Michelin star chefs suddenly like opened these really amazing casual concepts.
Yeah.
And they were just crushing it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think you're seeing that in Riyadh too.
Okay.
There's that desire for high quality.
Yeah.
But something that also fits into modern life.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I think that's really interesting is this whole trend towards fusion cuisine, blending local flavors with international influences.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's taking a traditional Saudi dish, but maybe giving it a modern, like Asian-inspired twist or something like that.
Okay. Oh, man, I'm already getting hungry just thinking about it. But how do you even choose a neighborhood?
Right.
In a city that's that massive? I mean, this is a make or break decision.
Absolutely.
Isn't it?
Oh, it's huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is. It's just like choosing real estate location is everything.
Mm-hmm.
And Menuville actually breaks down some of the top neighborhoods in Riyadh.
Mm-hmm.
And they all have their own kind of distinct character. So one of the first ones is Al Alaya, and that's the business district.
Okay.
So think skyscrapers, luxury hotels, constant flow, professional.
Like Riyadh's answer to Dubai's like financial district.
Totally, yeah.
Okay.
Lots of business lunches, client meetings.
High stakes, high rewards.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But that does mean, the rents there are going to be pretty steep.
Yeah, makes sense.
So if you're looking for something a little more affordable, maybe with a different clientele,
okay,
Al Malka could be more your speed.
Okay, let's dive into Al Malka.
Okay.
What's going on there? What's the vibe?
Well, it's a vibrant residential area.
Okay.
It's popular with young families, professionals. It's got a more laid-back, community-focused feel.
Okay.
So perfect for those family-friendly restaurants, maybe some of those trendy cafes that we talked about.
Yeah.
And it's also undergoing rapid development, new schools, healthcare facilities, shopping malls are all popping up.
Okay.
So that means a steady influx of residents.
Yeah.
And demand for more diverse dining options.
Okay, so Al Alaya is like the power lunch.
Yeah.
Al Malka is like, kind of like that neighborhood vibe. Yeah. Exactly. What other spots, culinary corners?
Okay, well, for a totally different feel, we can hop over to the diplomatic quarter. So as the name suggests, it's a hub for embassies, international organizations, and a really large expat community.
Okay, so if you're thinking about specializing in one cuisine or maybe something a little niche or high-end,
Totally, yeah.
that's where you want to be.
Yeah, fine dining, maybe unique concepts, and a clientele that's used to a more international palate.
Yeah, high risk, high reward. I like it. Okay, last one on this culinary tour.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's head over to Al Marouj.
Okay.
It's another rapidly developing area. It's really popular with families, and it's known for its parks, malls, and recreational facilities.
Okay.
So, imagine a place where families can go, relax, grab a bite to eat after spending the day at the park or the mall.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that makes it ideal for casual dining, fast food franchises, or even cafes that are catering to a younger crowd.
Okay, so we kind of got, like a little taste of these different neighborhoods, but even within a specific area, like how do you choose the spot? What should you be looking for?
Well, that's where you have to, kind of put on your real estate hat. And one of the first things is really understanding the demographics of the area.
Oh, okay.
Thinking about
Making sure the people who live and work there are the same as the customers you want to attract.
exactly,
Okay.
Thinking about their age, their income levels,
Hmm.
cultural background, even their dining habits.
Yeah.
And does all of that align with your concept and price point?
Right.
A high-end steakhouse in a student neighborhood is probably not going to fly.
No.
So
You gotta know your audience.
Yeah.
And I imagine visibility and foot traffic. I mean, even if you have the most incredible
Right.
restaurant, if it's tucked away in like an alley,
Yeah.
no one's gonna find it.
You hit the nail on the head. You want to be on a street with, a steady flow of both pedestrians and vehicle traffic.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally with good visibility from the road,
Mm-hmm.
being close to like attractions, shopping centers, entertainment venues, that can also really drive a lot of, kind of spontaneous traffic.
I'm always a little torn about the competition thing.
Yeah.
I mean, part of me thinks if you're like the only pizza place
Yeah.
within, 10 blocks, you've got it made.
Right.
But then you see all these restaurant clusters that seem to do really, really well.
Yeah.
So what's your thought on that?
Well, it's a tricky balance, I think. Competition can be both a blessing and a curse, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
And, being part of a cluster can actually create that dining destination feel.
Yeah.
So people might come to that area specifically to try out different places.
Yeah.
But if you're too close to direct competitors, it can also dilute your customer base, especially if you're not offering something unique.
So it's not just about being near other restaurants, but about standing out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
You got to give people a reason to choose your place over all the others.
Okay.
Whether it's the cuisine, the atmosphere, the service, or even the pricing.
So yeah, think about what makes your concept special.
Yeah, okay. This is making me want to start scouting out locations myself. But, okay,
Yeah.
parking, that's got to be a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. In a city that's that car-centric.
Huge.
Yeah.
In Riyadh, ample parking is essential. And also, remember, most people are going to be driving to your restaurant. So think about the ease of access from major roads, public transportation. Those are all important. And don't underestimate the popularity of valet services either,
Oh, yeah.
especially for those higher-end restaurants.
Yeah, okay, so that's all, like, even before someone steps foot in the door,
Yeah.
you want to make sure that experience is smooth, but okay, this might seem like a little detail, but like proximity to your suppliers. Does that matter?
Yeah, it's more important than you might think.
Okay.
If you're close to your suppliers, it minimizes delays.
It helps you keep your inventory fresh.
Yeah.
And can even really make a difference to your bottom line, so.
I wonder if customers in Riyadh are as concerned about food miles and all that as they are in Europe or North America.
Yeah, it's definitely a growing trend globally.
Yeah.
And Riyadh is no exception.
Okay. So
Okay.
we've got the neighborhood vibe,
Yeah.
the foot traffic,
Mm-hmm.
the competition, parking, suppliers. Now, how do we talk about the elephant in the room?
Right.
The money.
Money, yeah.
The financials of all of this. Like, where do you even begin to wrap your head around that?
Well, I think the first thing is you have to kind of accept that location costs are going to be a major part of your budget.
Okay.
And rental prices can very wildly depending on the area. So, for example, those high-end districts that we talked about, like Al Walaya, the Diplomatic Quarter, those are going to come with some pretty premium rents.
So if you're like, first-time restaurateur, you're on a budget, that's probably not where you're going to be looking.
It depends on your concept.
Yeah.
And your level of risk tolerance. But generally, those areas are probably more suited for established businesses.
Okay.
Or those with a lot of financial backing.
So where should the budget-conscious entrepreneurs be looking?
Well, I think, mid-range areas like Al Malka offer a good balance
of
affordability and customer potential.
Okay.
So you often get more attractive rent prices there while still having access to a pretty decent customer base.
Yeah.
And then emerging neighborhoods like El Marouge.
Yeah.
Those might even have even better opportunities.
Okay.
In terms of, the rent-to-customer ratio.
But, obviously, lower rent doesn't always mean higher profit.
No, absolutely not.
Right. There's a lot of things to consider.
Yeah, you have to carefully evaluate, the potential return on investment or ROI for each location. So you have to think about how much can you realistically generate in sales?
Yeah.
Given the foot traffic, given the demographics, what's the long-term growth potential of the neighborhood?
Okay.
So it's about, balancing that upfront cost with the revenue that you can hopefully generate.
But what about all those, hidden costs that seem to pop up? Renovations, unexpected repairs, permits. How do you account for
Those are just crucial considerations, and they're really easy to underestimate, honestly.
Yeah.
So you have to factor in things like utilities, which can really vary a lot depending on the building and the area, permits and licenses, which are essential for operating legally.
Yeah.
And then there's the cost of actually fitting out the space itself.
Yeah. It's just like on those home renovation shows,
Right, yeah.
You knock down a wall and then there's some some massive problem.
A problem. Okay.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, you have to be prepared for those unexpected expenses.
Yeah.
And have a contingency.
Okay. So you've scouted some locations, you've, crunched the numbers, you're feeling good about the financial side of things. Do you sign on the dotted line and start designing your menu?
Well, not quite so fast.
Okay.
There's one more crucial element that I think we need to talk about.
Okay.
And that's navigating the world of regulations and permits in Riyadh.
Okay. Buckle up, listener.
Yeah, exactly. This is, it could be a bit of a headache.
Oh, okay.
But it's essential.
Okay.
So first up, we've got zoning laws. These are the rules that determine what types of businesses can operate in certain areas. So, most restaurants will need to be in a commercially zoned area. Maybe a small cafe or family-run place might be allowed in residential zones, but often with specific restrictions.
Okay, so check those zoning laws right away.
Next up, you've got health and safety regulations, which are, understandably strict when it comes to food service.
Yeah.
So we're talking food safety standards for storage and preparation.
Okay.
Sanitation requirements for your restrooms, hand washing stations. And then fire safety compliance, making sure you have extinguishers, emergency exits, all that kind of stuff.
No one wants a surprise visit from the health inspector.
No, for sure not.
Okay.
And then, of course, there's the all-important licenses and permits
that
you'll need to actually operate legally.
What do I need?
Okay. Well, you're going to need a general municipality license to operate a restaurant in Riyadh.
Okay.
You'll need a food handling license to make sure your staff is properly trained in food safety.
Okay.
Commercial registration with the Ministry of Commerce.
Okay.
And even a permit for your signage.
Wow, that's
a bit of a checklist.
It is.
But it's all part of doing business in Riyadh. And the key is just to start the process early, be organized, and make sure you've got everything you need before you think about opening those doors.
Okay, so we've tackled the location, the regulations, the leases, all that. But at the end of the day, it's all about those customers.
Right.
So how do you make sure you're choosing a location that actually resonates with those people?
Yeah, that's a great point. And that's where I think understanding customer behavior in Riyadh is really crucial. And it's not just about, finding a street with high foot traffic.
Right.
It's about understanding their dining habits, the cultural nuances, and even the seasonal trends that are going to shape how people choose to eat out.
What's an example of how dining habits in Riyadh are different from other cities around the world?
Well, one thing is that family-focused dining is huge
Oh.
in Riyadh. Um, people love to go out to eat with their families, especially on the weekends. So restaurants with large seating areas, family-friendly atmospheres, those tend to do really well.
Okay, so if I was going to open like a tiny romantic
Yeah.
little bistro.
Probably not the best fit.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And then the other thing, too, is that late-night dining is a big part of the culture.
Okay.
Due to the hot climate, cultural preferences, people tend to dine later in the evening, especially during Ramadan or the summer.
Okay, so adjust your hours, make sure, it works for everyone.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
And then of course, you have to take into consideration the influence of religious and cultural practices.
Yeah.
So, all food served in Riyadh has to be halal.
Right.
Restaurants need to be sensitive to the local customs.
Yeah.
In terms of attire.
Right.
And interactions between genders. So.
Yeah, so like offering privacy in dining areas, respecting, those norms, that can be, a make or break thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
And no alcohol.
Right, no alcohol.
Yeah.
Served in Saudi Arabia at all, so that's not even something you have to worry about.
Good to know, good to know. Okay, so we've talked about those general dining habits.
Yeah.
But how do seasonal trends, like how does the weather affect where people choose to eat?
Oh, yeah, that's a really great point.
Yeah.
In the summer, the heat is scorching in Riyadh, so that drives people indoors. So you'll see that malls, enclosed shopping centers, those become really popular dining destinations.
Right.
And then during Ramadan, dining patterns shift dramatically. There's increased activity after sunset when people break the fast.
Yeah.
And then even, thinking about the work week, it runs from Sunday to Thursday in Saudi Arabia. So on the weekends, you see higher foot traffic in residential areas, leisure areas, as people have more free time.
It's really interesting how, these cultural, social rhythms affect business decisions.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about, the market, the neighborhoods, the actual, location, the cost, regulations, customer behavior. Is there anything else that you would recommend doing before someone makes that final decision on a spot?
Yeah, I would say that conducting a thorough location feasibility study can really be the difference between a successful launch and a costly misstep.
Okay.
And it's basically, taking all that information that we've talked about and really determining if a specific location is actually viable for your concept.
Walk me through it.
Okay, so one of those powerful tools that you can use is a SWOT analysis.
SWOT analysis.
Yeah.
Okay, so just for anyone who hasn't, written a million business plans, what does that stand for?
Okay, so SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
Okay.
And it's basically a structured way to assess both the positive and negative aspects of a potential site.
So you're looking at it 366. Totally.
Weighing the pros and the cons.
Exactly. So, for example, you might be considering a spot.
Okay.
That's near a popular mall.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's a strength, right? Because of all that foot traffic.
Right.
But what if there are already 3 other restaurants in the mall's food court that serve the same kind of food?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a threat, right?
Okay, so you're looking at both the potential and the pitfalls.
Yeah. At the same time. So, you're looking for opportunities. Like, are there any new developments going up that could bring even more customers to the area?
Yeah.
Weaknesses, is there limited parking that might deter people?
Okay.
So it's about having that balanced perspective.
Makes sense. Okay. What else should be part of a feasibility study? What other research?
Well, you can't rely on assumptions, I think, when it comes to this.
Yeah.
You actually need to get out there and observe the customer flow at different times of the day.
So doing a foot traffic survey can be really helpful.
Like actually physically go stand there and see who's walking by.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
See who's walking by.
Yeah.
Are they part of your target market?
Mm-hmm.
What's the volume of people like during peak hours?
Yeah.
How much traffic are your competitors getting?
Yeah. Okay.
So it's about gathering that real world data.
It's like a detective.
Exactly.
Yeah, a little culinary detective.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, there's so much data available these days. Is there a way to use technology to make this a little easier?
Oh, absolutely. Technology can be a really powerful ally.
Okay.
When it comes to making data-driven decisions. So things like, GIS mapping, online analytics, even social media trends. Those can give you really valuable insights into the demographics,
Okay.
the consumer behavior, and even, the delivery and takeout preferences in the area.
It's like your little digital sidekick
Totally.
just helping you out. Okay. So we've covered the market crunching numbers, regulations, but we haven't talked about the digital world.
Oh, yeah.
How does that factor into choosing a restaurant location in this crazy tech world that we live in?
Well, it's a great point, and it's interesting because, in the past, location was all about foot traffic and visibility.
Right.
But now, your digital presence can actually influence how much foot traffic you get.
Whoa. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
How does the online world affect those real world footsteps?
Well, just think about, how people are finding restaurants these days. They're searching online, reading reviews, scrolling through social media.
Yeah.
So all of that digital activity can either lead them to your door or to competitors.
So even if you have the most incredible location, physically, but you're not online.
You're missing out.
Yeah.
You're missing out.
It's like having this amazing storefront,
Yeah.
but forgetting to unlock the door. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do we do that?
Yeah.
How do we create that?
Well, first up, you got to think about online reviews. Those can really make or break you.
Do people really base their decisions on what strangers say online?
Honestly, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, those online reviews are often the first impression that a potential customer is going to have of your restaurant.
Right.
So positive reviews build trust. They encourage people to come and try your food. But negative reviews can be a major deterrent.
Yeah.
Even if someone's walking right past your restaurant.
It's like amplified word of mouth.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and how do you manage that?
Well, I think, platforms like Google Reviews are particularly important.
Okay.
Because those often appear in search results when people are looking for restaurants.
Okay.
So, having high ratings. Lots of positive feedback that can really boost your visibility.
Okay, so it's not just encouraging reviews, but it's engaging with them, responding, showing people you care.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
And then there's also, the power of geo-targeted marketing.
Oh, okay.
Which basically allows you to reach potential customers who are in your immediate vicinity.
Yeah.
So think about, location-based ads on Google and Instagram.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're running special promotions for people who check in at your restaurant on social media.
Like a digital net around your restaurant.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay.
And if you have a delivery or takeout app, you can actually send, push notifications to people in the area during peak dining times.
Okay. So we've got online reviews, we've got geo-targeted marketing, anything else digitally?
Yeah. I would say one of the most important is your Google My Business profile.
Okay. Google My Business. Tell me why this matters.
Think of it as your digital storefront.
Okay.
So it's all about that local visibility. When somebody searches for restaurants near me on Google, a well-optimized GMB profile can really be the difference between showing up at the top of that list or being buried, on page 3.
So making it easy for people to find you?
Yeah.
Even if they're only a few blocks away?
Totally, yeah.
Okay.
So you want to make sure your address, your hours, contact info, all of that's accurate, up to date.
Okay.
High quality photos of your restaurant, your food.
Yeah.
Those are also really crucial for attracting attention.
And encouraging those positive reviews, right?
Absolutely. Never hurts. And again, your GMB profile is often the first point of contact that a customer has with your restaurant online. So you want to make sure it's a good one.
Yeah. Okay, so we've established that choosing a restaurant location in Riyadh, it's
complicated.
It's involved.
Yeah, a lot of moving parts.
There's a lot to think about. So before we wrap up this part of the deep dive, what are some of the things that people often overlook when they're choosing a location? What are some pitfalls?
That's a great question. And I think one of the biggest pitfalls is overestimating customer demand.
Okay, help me understand that.
Yeah.
Isn't high foot traffic always good?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Because you can't assume that just because an area is busy,
Right.
that automatically translates into demand for your specific restaurant concept.
So just because the street's crowded
Yeah.
doesn't mean your dining room is going to be crowded.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, for example, you might have a location that has tons of foot traffic during the day because of office workers.
Yeah.
But if your restaurant's geared towards families looking for a relaxed evening meal,
Right.
that lunchtime rush isn't going to do much for you.
It's about knowing who those people are, not just how many.
Yeah. And then some areas, might only experience a surge in traffic during certain seasons or events,
Right.
which can be tough
Yeah.
during the off-peak times.
Yeah.
So you need to, be realistic about the type of demand that the location can actually generate.
It's not just, slapping a for lease sign up
Right.
and jumping on it.
Right.
What about competition?
Yeah.
I mean, we've touched on this, but how does that trip people up?
Well, I think, some people underestimate the impact of being too close to direct competitors.
Okay.
So they see a really busy restaurant district and they think, oh, if they're all doing well, I will too.
Yeah.
But the reality is, if there are already 5 Italian restaurants on the same block,
Yeah.
it's going to be really hard to stand out.
Yeah.
Especially if you're all kind of offering the same menu, the same price point.
Yeah.
So, it's not just about being in a busy area.
Right.
It's about finding your niche within that market. You got to stand out.
You got to differentiate or die, as they say.
Okay, I like that. Differentiate or die. Okay, what other pitfalls do you see?
Well, I think, renovation costs are a big one.
Okay.
It's really easy to get excited about a space
Yeah.
and underestimate the amount of work it's actually going to take
Right.
to get it restaurant ready, especially if it's an older building.
Yep.
Or a space that wasn't originally designed for food service.
I can totally see that. Like, you walk in, there's exposed brick, high ceilings. You're like, oh, this is perfect. And then
Exactly.
then you have to completely redo everything.
Yeah, you might have to upgrade the plumbing, electrical ventilation systems, and then you have those permit delays,
Right.
which can push back your opening.
That's a domino effect, isn't it?
It totally is, yeah.
Yeah.
One thing leads to another, and before you know it, you're months behind schedule
Okay.
and over budget.
So before you fall in love with a space,
Get that realistic picture.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't let those hidden expenses catch you off guard.
Okay, and speaking of expenses, this is another thing that I think, trips people up. They just focus on that rental price
Yeah.
without thinking about those long-term costs.
Right. It's tempting.
It is. You see, oh, rent's cheap, I'm in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what about all the other expenses
Yeah.
that are going to impact your bottom line over time?
Yeah.
Things like, your utility costs,
Mm-hmm.
which can really vary depending on the building's energy efficiency.
Yeah.
Maintenance fees, which can be higher in older buildings or high traffic areas.
And those lease terms, right?
And the lease terms, yeah.
It's not all about that low initial rent.
Right. That low initial rent might be offset by huge escalation clauses.
Right.
A couple years down the line.
Okay, so think long-term, make sure it's sustainable.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, so we've explored, the pitfalls of choosing a restaurant location in Riyadh. Yeah.
We've talked about the market, the neighborhoods, the location itself, costs, regulations, customer behavior, even digital presence.
It's a lot.
It is a lot.
Yeah.
So what does this all mean for our listener?
Yeah.
What are the key takeaways that you want them to walk away with?
Well, I mean, I think the first takeaway is that choosing a restaurant location, it's a complex decision.
Yeah.
And there's really no one-size-fits-all answer. It requires research, it requires analysis, and it requires a realistic understanding of your concept and your target market.
Sure.
So, you can't just rely on gut feeling or, what your friend's uncle told you.
Yeah, right.
You have to do your homework.
Don't rush into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a big division.
It is,
Yeah.
So
take your time.
Take your time.
Yeah.
Understand the dynamics of the market, evaluate those neighborhoods, and assess all those factors that are going to contribute to your success. And don't forget those practical considerations,
Right.
The nuts and bolts.
Yeah, the foot traffic, the visibility, the parking,
Yeah.
the proximity to suppliers,
Yeah.
the size and layout of the space, the lease terms, all of those things matter.
And crunch those numbers.
Crunch those numbers.
Because those hidden costs, as we said,
Oh, they'll ditch you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and while you're crunching those numbers, don't forget to factor in that cultural context. This is Riyadh. This isn't London. This isn't New York.
Got you for rules.
Different rules of the game.
Yeah.
So understanding those dining habits, the religious and social norms, the seasonal trends, those are the things that are really going to set you apart.
Yeah.
And help you connect with your target audience.
Okay. And in this digital age,
Yeah.
don't forget that online presence is just as important as your physical presence.
Yeah, it's about creating that synergy between the physical and the digital. Making sure your online presence complements your real-world location.
And remember those pitfalls that we talked about.
Yes, the overestimating demand, the ignoring the competition, the underestimating costs, the getting caught up in the excitement of a location.
Right.
Without thinking about, the long-term implications.
Yeah. Okay. So do your research.
Do your research.
Be realistic.
Plan for the long term.
Absolutely. Set yourself up for success.
Okay. So we've covered so much, but I know there's always more to learn. So I want to leave our listener with a question.
Okay.
Something for them to think about.
Yeah.
As they go on this journey of opening a restaurant in Riyadh.
Yeah.
So what's that question?
Well, given the unique blend of tradition and modernity that defines Riyadh's dining scene, what kind of fusion cuisine concept do you think would thrive?
Oh, I like that.
In one of the specific neighborhoods that we talked about? I love that question because it makes you think about, the market, the location, the cultural nuances all at once.
Totally.
Yeah, it's like it's finding that spot where your creativity meets the practicality.
Yeah.
Your passion for food meets the desires of your audience.
Totally.
Okay, so I think we've given our listener a lot to
chew on.
A lot to chew on today, yes.
Yeah.
This has been a deep dive into the Riyadh restaurant scene. And I hope it's provided some valuable insights as they kind of embark on this journey.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a dynamic market.
Yeah.
With a ton of potential and with, some careful planning, a little bit of savvy.
Yeah.
I'm sure they can find that perfect spot.
Yeah. And if anyone wants to keep, exploring this, the New VL's blog has some other great articles, like one on choosing a winning name for your restaurant.
Oh, yeah?
And another one on the benefits of online menus.
Those are good ones.
Yeah, we'll link those in the show notes.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Okay, so before we wrap things up, I've got one more question for you. We've talked about finding a great location, all the regulations, customer behavior, all that good stuff. But how do you actually find these locations? What's like the process, for someone who's starting out?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first thing I would say is don't just rely on online listings. Get out there and walk the neighborhoods. Actually pound the pavement. Sometimes you stumble upon the best spots just by chance. Talk to other business owners. Get a feel for the local vibe.
Okay.
It's amazing what you can learn just by being physically present in the area.
Yeah, it's like that old saying, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's the best way to find a location is to lose yourself in the streets of Riyadh. Yeah.
Exactly. And, don't be afraid to think outside the box. Maybe a traditional storefront isn't the right fit for your concept.
Yeah.
Maybe a food truck or a pop-up stall would be a good way to, test the waters.
Yeah, test it out.
Build your brand a bit before you commit to like a brick and mortar location.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Especially if you're starting out, it could be a good way to kind of mitigate some of that risk.
Right. Okay, so you found a few spots. They look promising. What's next?
All right, well, this is where that due diligence comes in. Don't just take the landlord's word for it. Do your own research. Check those property records. Review the lease agreement really carefully.
Okay.
You might even want to consider hiring a lawyer to help you with some of those legal complexities.
It's like buying a house. You don't want to skip the inspection.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You need to uncover any potential issues before you commit. Is the building up to code? Are there any outstanding permits or violations? Those are things you want to know up front.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So you don't get hit with any nasty surprises later.
Okay. And speaking of, making deals, let's talk about negotiating that lease.
Right.
Is there any wiggle room in Riyadh, or is it pretty much, take it or leave it.
There's always some room for negotiation,
Okay.
but it's important to be realistic
Mm-hmm.
and approach it strategically.
Yep.
So do your research on, comparable rents in the area.
Mm-hmm.
Be prepared to walk away if the terms aren't favorable.
Yeah.
And you might even consider bringing in a professional negotiator
Okay.
to help you secure the best possible deal.
All right. So be informed, be assertive, but also, respect those local customs.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's fast forward. You've found your perfect location. You've got your lease. You're starting to build out your restaurant. What advice do you have for someone at that stage?
Well, I would say prioritize functionality
Mm-hmm.
and efficiency. A beautiful restaurant's great. But if your kitchen isn't designed for a smooth workflow,
Sure.
or if the layout just doesn't make sense for, your style of service, it's going to impact your bottom line.
Right. So balance the aesthetics.
Absolutely. The practicality. Yeah, think about the flow of customers, where your equipment's going to be,
Mm-hmm.
the ease of cleaning, maintenance, all of those things. A well-designed space
Mm-hmm.
can make your life a lot easier.
Makes sense.
And ultimately, it's going to contribute to a better customer experience as well.
Yeah. Okay. Don't forget about permits, inspections,
Yes, all those fun things.
all that.
Absolutely. Stay on top of those regulatory requirements throughout the entire build-out process. Make sure your contractors know the local codes,
Mhm.
schedule those inspections promptly, and just be prepared for some potential delays.
It's all part of the process.
It is. It's all part of the journey.
Okay. So it sounds like opening a restaurant in Riyadh, I mean, it's not for the faint of heart,
No.
but for those who have, the vision, the passion, the willingness to put in the work,
Yeah,
can be an amazing experience.
totally. I mean, Riyadh's dining scene is so dynamic,
Yeah.
diverse, full of opportunity, and with the right approach,
Yeah.
there's no reason why you can't create a really successful, thriving business
Yeah.
that contributes to, this exciting culinary landscape.
All right. So we've covered, pretty much everything about choosing a location for your restaurant in Riyadh,
Yeah.
from, understanding the market to navigating the regulations to building that online presence.
Mhm.
We've given you the tools, the insights
Yeah,
to, make those decisions,
Yeah.
avoid those pitfalls,
absolutely.
and hopefully inspired you along the way.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah. Yeah. And remember, opening a restaurant is a journey.
It is.
And like any good adventure,
Yeah.
there's going to be challenges, there's
Yeah.
going to be triumphs.
Ups and downs.
But with careful planning,
Yeah,
a little savvy, and a lot of passion.
lots of passion. You can make this happen.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
into the Riyadh restaurant scene. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.